Chris Dawson has spent his first night behind bars at the Sydney Police Centre. Later on today, he'll be heading to either Silverwater or Parklee. That's where he'll likely spend the rest of his life. Joining us live now is the investigative journalist and the host of the Teacher's Pet podcast, Hedley Thomas. Hedley, thanks for your time this morning. First of all, congratulations to you on your tremendous work that brought about this result. How do you feel about it all this morning, having digested the news now for a little longer?
Thank you, Peter. Look, great relief that we've finally got here. I've become very close to Lynn Dawson's family, her brother Greg, her sister Pat, other members of the family, cousins, and Lynn's daughter Chanel. And the relief I think that they feel is, very powerful. There was sadness yesterday in court, in the court where Chris was actually convicted. He was sitting just a few metres from us. I was with Greg and Marilyn, and we watched it unfold in just the most dramatic fashion at the end. Within seconds of him being found guilty, the officers were walking across to put handcuffs on him, and it was a sad moment. It wasn't a celebratory time. It was the final chapter, the family hopes. Perhaps the second last chapter, actually, because they really want Chris to tell them where Lynn's remains are.
I will ask you about that in a second, but I mean, could you have imagined this result when you started the Teacher's Pet all those years ago?
Peter, we wanted to see Chris Dawson go to trial. That was the objective. Put it before a jury or a judge and let these decision makers determine what happened to Lynn, whether Chris Dawson was responsible. And that was something that I thought should have happened years ago. That it was so elusive for the family is a travesty in itself. Chris Dawson's had 40 years of freedom, despite evidence that really should have seen him face a trial 4 decades ago, soon after Lynn disappeared. Instead, because of the lying and the scheming and the conniving, he has evaded justice, and also, in my view, because of an incredibly shoddy police investigation through the years early on, through the years immediately after Lynn disappeared. In fact, there was really no investigation. She was smeared as a runaway mother who just didn't love her children enough. She abandoned them, Chris said. That was rubbish, and that should have rung alarm bells. But prosecutors, I believe, have to be answerable too on this. Why didn't they run this case so long ago? They've done a brilliant job this time around, but it's a completely different situation now. They've, I think, achieved a remarkable result, and Craig Everson did an extraordinary job in the murder trial. But this result could have been achieved, in my view, many years ago, given the evidence that Justice Harrison weighed and talked about in his reasoning yesterday.
I mean, were you convinced that he did it when you started on this project?
When I started on the project, Peter, I was gravely suspicious because the evidence and the evidence of his lies looked so obvious. Why would you be lying about things that you were innocent in? Most people can be lying when they've got a consciousness of guilt. So that made me very suspicious. As I got further into the case, as I spoke to more witnesses, as I discovered other bits and pieces, and really, I think, was able to put together the chronology and understand the events and the different conversations, I was utterly convinced. I was 100% convinced. And I thought it was interesting that the judge said yesterday, I am in no doubt. Not beyond reasonable doubt. He said, I am in no doubt. So that's a very affirmative statement. It doesn't get much more certain than that.
There is still that one question that the family want answered. Where is the body? I mean, given what you know about Chris Dawson, are you likely to get that answer?
I don't think Chris Dawson is going to tell the family where Lynn is unless there's something transactional in it for him. Perhaps the opportunity for him to get out of prison a little sooner. In Queensland, we have no body, no parole laws. In New South Wales, it's optional. The Premier of New South Wales, the Parliament really should look at changing that legislation. It doesn't take much. If you have someone convicted of the crime of murder or unlawful killing, don't let the people out once they've served their time and they're eligible for parole unless they disclose where they have buried, concealed the remains of the victim. This can be done, and I think that it would be a really good reform. Chris Dawson might tell if he thinks that he can get out of prison in time to have a few years of freedom before he dies. But I suspect that unless there is something like that on offer, he will go to his grave not disclosing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the very least that Lynn's family deserve. And were you with Lynn's family last night, Hedley? How did you celebrate? Is celebrate the right word? I'm not sure. As you mentioned earlier, with all those mixed feelings.
Yeah, very mixed feelings, Peter. We did spend several hours together back at the hotel in a restaurant downstairs. We were with Greg Sims and Marilyn and their daughter Renee, their son Craig, also the detective Damien Loon, now retired. He was there with his wife Rachel. My colleagues Claire Harvey and David Murray and Matt Condon came, and there were others, Pat Jenkins' son, David. This has been a massive commitment by the Sims family for many years. They didn't believe that they would ever see the killer of Lynn held accountable and convicted. And so you can imagine there were some very touching moments, and it was sad. There were moments of happiness too. Celebration isn't the right word, but certainly there was a cheerful mood.
Okay. Hedley, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. And I should ask, I mean, are you going to do another episode of A Teacher's Pet now to wrap things up, or where to from here for you? Yeah,
Peter, I hope that we can even look at bringing The Teacher's Pet back for listeners in Australia. It's been available around the world, but as a result of the court proceedings, the criminal charge, we took The Teacher's Pet down for Australian listeners in early 2019. So it would be great for it to come back up. Well, we'd probably have to make some edits to it because of another proceeding that is yet to be completed involving Chris Dawson, a legal proceeding. However, I think that it would be a really important thing. No journalist, no media outlet likes to see the product of their work taken off air, censored, and we would love to have that back. I've got so many more ideas and cases that I hope I could get stuck into, and I welcome the approaches I get from members of the public, people who have lost a loved one, a missing sister, mother, daughter. They're very time consuming, and I don't go into them lightly, so it takes a huge amount of time and research, but I welcome them, and I hope to do another one.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing it whenever you do it. Hedley Thomas, once again, congratulations on your work that's led to this result and this outcome. Thank you for your time. We'll talk to you soon.